Take a deep breath. Let it fill the space between your ribs, that quiet chamber of air where thought begins to soften. And as you exhale, feel the evening settle around you, the kind of evening that feels neither old nor new, but eternal, a simple pause in the story of time. Before we continue, comment down below where you are from and what time it is wherever you are. The world dims, and with that dimming comes a sense of invitation. A whisper, maybe. A suggestion to slow down, to notice, to drift. Tonight, I will guide you through a painting. But more than that, through a world, a silence, a philosophy that lives in color and shadow. We will walk, softly, through Peter Bruegel's vision, the landscape with the fall of Icarus. And as we drift, the myth will wake, not as a tale of tragedy, but as a murmur of understanding. For even in his fall, Icarus teaches us something gentle about being human, about the light we chase and the oceans we forget beneath us. So, breathe again. In and out. Let each breath be a brushstroke of calm across your mind. Imagine yourself standing before a great canvas. It rests in the quiet glow of a museum light, the kind that hums softly, barely audible, but somehow alive. The air smells faintly of varnish and time. The floor beneath your feet creaks like an old thought returning. At first, your eyes seek the obvious, color, form, the sweep of the land. Greens and ochres unfold into fields. A plough carves a slow rhythm through the soil. Farther off, a shepherd turns his gaze toward the clouds. A fisherman sits at the edge of a bright green sea, line in hand, patient as the horizon itself. The world moves quietly here. If you didn't know the painting's name, you might think it was about them, about the laborious, the sea, the pastoral peace of a spring afternoon. But somewhere, almost hidden, something happens. A small splash of white legs, flailing near the lower right corner, so small, you might miss it if your eyes blink too long. It's Icarus. Falling. Just that. No sun in flame, no drama in the clouds. Just a boy who flew too high, now swallowed by the calm indifference of a world still ploughing, herding, fishing. Bruegel does not paint the moment of glory. He paints the aftermath, the quiet, the continuation. And in that quiet, there's a philosophy more profound than any sermon. I step closer in imagination. And maybe you do too. The frame seems to breathe. The colors pulse with slow life. The fields curve into hills, the hills fade into the sea, and the sea becomes the breath of the sky, an endless, whispering blue. Each figure in the landscape carries its own small story, oblivious to the myth unraveling just beyond their sight. The ploughman bends to his earth, heavy with purpose, his horse moving forward in steady circles of survival. The shepherd gazes upward, but not at Icarus. He looks instead at something undefined, maybe a cloud, maybe nothing at all. And the fisherman's line trembles gently in the breeze, rippling toward the splash that has already disappeared. There's something deeply human in their ignorance, something tender in their not knowing. Philosophers have spoken about the indifference of the world, that quiet, unshaken calm that carries on no matter what heights or falls we reach. Camus might have called it the absurd, the space between our longing for meaning and the world's unanswering silence. Yet Bruegel's indifference is not cruel. It is soft. It is the indifference of life itself, not mocking, not cold, simply existing. The earth continues to turn, because it must. And maybe that is the lesson that lulls us to sleep tonight. That life, in all its simplicity, goes on. And in that continuation, there is peace. I close my eyes for a moment, and in that darkness, the painting begins to move. The ploughman shifts, dust rising behind his blade. The shepherd hums a tune to his flock. The sea ripples with the late sunlight. And beneath the water, perhaps a faint shimmer, the last trace of Icarus, disappearing into myth. His wings, once wide and brilliant, dissolve into the cool green. The wax melts not in fury, but in surrender. No one sees it. No one mourns it. The world folds him gently into its rhythm. And I wonder, isn't that what most of us long for, deep down? Not eternal glory, not endless flight, but a return. A quiet merging with something vast and forgiving. Breathe again. Let that thought sink into your chest like a pebble settling in calm water. You and I, standing before this painting, are not so different from Icarus. Each of us has flown too close to something: ambition, love, hope, the idea of perfection. And each of us, at some point, has fallen back to earth, quietly, without an audience. But perhaps falling is not the end. Perhaps falling is the only way to learn how to rest. Bruegel's genius is in that, in painting a fall that feels almost serene. Because the painting is not about the fall itself. It's about the world that continues, about the quiet insistence of life to carry on. The philosopher Heidegger once said that being is not about what we do, but about our presence in the world, our quiet dwelling within it. Maybe this painting is about dwelling, about being with the earth, the air, the unspoken hum of existence. You can almost hear it if you listen. The faint rustle of wheat, the brush of the wind through linen sleeves, the slow breath of the horse, the whisper of the sky. Each sound folds into another until they become one steady rhythm, like your own breathing, rising and falling with the same inevitability. And I speak softly to you now, as though from within that landscape. It's all right to rest. It's all right to fall. It's all right to be small in a vast, unknowing world. Because in that smallness, you belong. The ploughman doesn't question the horizon. The shepherd doesn't challenge the sky. They move, they breathe, they exist, and that is enough. And maybe tonight, that is enough for you too. I open my eyes again, and the light of the gallery feels softer, more forgiving. The painting no longer seems like oil and pigment, but a living field, breathing with quiet wisdom. I think of how art outlives us, how each viewer becomes part of its eternity for a moment. When you stand before it, you are both witness and participant, both the onlooker and the fallen. The myth becomes human again. You can feel it, can't you? The distance between heaven and earth narrowing, not in punishment, but in peace. Icarus is not screaming. He is returning. Returning to the water, to the body, to silence. And as he falls, the world around him holds steady, as though whispering, "You are still part of this." You breathe again. Slow, deep. In and out. Each exhale feels like a surrender to gravity, a soft fall back into yourself. Each inhale feels like sunlight brushing your wings again. In this space, between painting and thought, between waking and sleep, there is no need to strive. No need to climb higher. The sky is already within you. And as your body grows heavier, as the world outside fades to quiet, let yourself drift with Icarus, not in fear, but in wonder. For every fall, every descent, is only another way of returning home. Softly. Tonight, you do not need to fly. You only need to breathe. And as the world around you keeps turning, as Bruegel's fields glow in the last light, as the sea swells and hums, you can close your eyes and rest in the calm truth of it all. The sky whispers, the sea listens, and you are part of their endless conversation. Part 2, Through the Canvas. I step closer to the painting, though in this quiet space, step is less a movement of the feet and more a shift of attention. The canvas breathes as though it were alive, each brushstroke pulsing faintly with the memory of the hand that made it. I feel the texture beneath my fingertips, though I do not touch, for this world exists as much in perception as in paint. And now, as I breathe slowly, letting the air move gently through my chest, I find myself not standing before it but within it. The edges of the frame dissolve, and I am no longer merely observing. I am walking through the fields, feeling the soil give beneath my shoes, smelling the faint tang of sea salt carried by a soft breeze, hearing the low murmur of distant voices, not quite words, not quite songs, but the rhythm of life unfolding. The ploughman bends to the earth. His back is strong, his arms steady. I notice the way the reins sit in his hands, taut yet yielding. He does not see me. He does not need to. The world is not for my approval. It is simply. It moves forward regardless of recognition, regardless of admiration. I watch the soil open and close under the blade, like the slow inhale and exhale of a great, living body. And the shepherd, standing a little farther off, lifts his gaze toward the clouds. He hums a note that trembles across the hills. Perhaps he is singing to the sky, or perhaps he is singing to himself. In this quiet contemplation, I feel the weight of attention, of being present, of seeing without needing to alter, to intervene, to correct. There is wisdom here, unspoken yet profound, to dwell in the moment fully, even when tragedy brushes the edges of our vision. The sea stretches beyond the fields, a soft, undulating green, reflecting light and shadow as though the sky itself were breathing upon it. Small boats float lazily, tethered to nothing in particular, yet anchored by purpose unknown to me. They rise and fall gently, rocking with a rhythm older than memory. And beneath that placid surface, I sense the faint disturbance, a shimmer of movement where Icarus descends, almost hidden, almost forgotten. A subtle ripple betrays his presence, the delicate brush of myth against the calm of ordinary life. I let my thoughts drift in the same way, following the undulations of the fields, the curve of the hills, the faint swell of the waves. To enter this painting is to enter patience itself, a gentle acceptance that life flows with or without my comprehension. And yet, it is not apathy. It is attention. It is noticing. It is recognizing that even when we fail, even when we fall, even when the world does not pause to honor our struggles, there is value in presence. There is meaning in being. I move through the landscape with quiet footsteps, careful not to disturb the ploughman's rhythm, the shepherd's song, the fisherman's patience. My gaze lingers on the details. The faint curve of a hill that seems to cradle the horizon, the shimmer of light on a distant river, the way the sky bends, soft and wide, touching everything with gentle indifference. Each element is ordinary. Each is extraordinary. The painting is a meditation, a lesson whispered in oil and tempera, teaching that the small, unnoticed acts of life hold as much weight as the monumental ones. And yet, here is Icarus, the small figure of ambition, slipping from the sky. His body is only partially visible, legs thrashing, wings gone to wax and hubris, arms reaching for something unreachable. I pause at this moment, breathing with the rhythm of the fall. I consider the human impulse to rise, to climb, to break limits, and I am both saddened and comforted. To strive is to risk falling, and to fall is not shameful, it is human. It is inevitable. It is the measure of our desire to touch the sun, to chase the impossible. I walk closer, letting the landscape carry me gently. I notice the farmers continue their labor, the shepherd continues to hum, the fisherman continues to wait. Life proceeds, steady, gentle, resilient. And in that continuation, I sense the quiet philosophy Bruegel embeds in every brushstroke. The world does not stop for glory or disaster. It simply persists. The ordinary, the unnoticed, the everyday, these are the true constants. These are the rhythms we can trust, the steady heartbeat of existence. I pause again and consider the interplay of perspective. I am both inside the painting and outside of it, observer and participant, witness and witness to witness. The canvas teaches that perception is not linear, that understanding is not a single point but a relationship, an interaction. What I see depends upon how I enter the world, how I choose to dwell within it. There is no final, absolute interpretation. There is only experience, the soft, enveloping experience of being present. I notice the way Bruegel has rendered the sky, not as a dramatic stage for heroics, but as a wide, patient expanse. Its gentle sweep does not demand attention. It invites. It allows. The clouds are soft, the light diffused, a reminder that even the greatest falls occur beneath an indifferent, eternal sky. The sun does not punish Icarus. The wind does not mock him. The sky simply is. And I am reminded that the same sky holds all our struggles, our triumphs, our fleeting joys, our quiet disappointments. My steps carry me toward the edge of the water, where the ripple of Icarus' descent merges with the gentle motion of the sea. I imagine the sensation of immersion, cool, enveloping, and paradoxically safe. Here, falling is not an end. It is transformation. The wax melts, the wings fail, and yet there is no finality, only return. To surrender to gravity is to meet the earth, the sea, the world fully, without resistance. And in that surrender, there is a kind of grace. The colors of the painting blur softly before my eyes, the greens of the fields mingling with the blues of the sea, the ochres of the soil merging with the pale sky. The boundaries of form dissolve, and I feel myself moving with the landscape, inhaling its rhythm, exhaling into its quietude. Each breath is a brushstroke of presence, each heartbeat a reflection of the eternal hum of the world. And as I move, I reflect on the philosophical truths hidden in simplicity. Life does not need dramatics to be meaningful. There is a wisdom in smallness, in unnoticed moments, in the quiet constancy of labor, song, and patience. Icarus' fall is remarkable, yes, but the ploughman's work, the shepherd's tune, the fisherman's watchfulness. These are the true undercurrents of human existence. The painting whispers that grandeur is not measured by spectacle but by fidelity to the flow of life, by attention, by dwelling fully in the ordinary. I pause once more, feeling the gentle pull of fatigue, the natural invitation of rest. I let my gaze linger on the smallest details, the texture of the soil, the curve of the clouds, the faint gleam of sunlight on distant water. I am a part of this space now, and it is a part of me. Time slows. The world softens. Even Icarus' fall becomes gentle, a quiet reminder that all striving, all ambition, all human effort is enveloped in a larger, forgiving cosmos. And I whisper softly to myself, as if the painting itself were listening. It is enough to be here. It is enough to see. It is enough to breathe. The sky is vast. The fields are patient. The sea is eternal. And I, in my smallness, in my quietness, in my awareness, am home. I move deeper into the painting, letting the landscape unfold around me like a gentle tide. The fields stretch endlessly, green and ochre merging into soft hills that cradle the horizon. The light falls evenly, neither harsh nor dramatic, but steady, patient, quiet. Here, I notice the ordinary lives unfolding, the ploughman bending to his soil, the shepherd tending his flock, the fisherman at the water's edge. They are unaware of the myth brushing against their world. They do not look at Icarus, nor do they pause for tragedy. And yet, in their simplicity, there is a profound lesson. Life moves on. I walk alongside the ploughman. His hands grip the plough with practiced strength, guiding the earth in a rhythm older than memory. I breathe in sync with him. One step, one stroke, one exhale. There is no hurry, no expectation. Just labor, steady and true. It strikes me that perhaps this is the first philosophy Bruegel offers, the quiet dignity of daily life. While ambition may lead to soaring heights or sudden falls, the world's ordinary motions persist, patient, enduring, uncelebrated. The shepherd catches my attention next. He stands upon a hill, softly humming to the wind. His eyes wander upward, yet not toward the falling boy. Instead, they trace the clouds, the curve of the hills, the patterns in the grass. There is a meditative grace here, a devotion not to achievement but to awareness. I wonder, how often do we miss the subtle, persistent beauty of life because our gaze is fixed upon extraordinary events? Here, in this quiet observation, I feel the answer. Presence itself is a kind of heroism. And the fisherman, patient at the water's edge, reminds me that waiting can also be an act of understanding. His line trembles faintly in the gentle current, moving with the rhythm of the sea. He does not strive to command the fish, nor does he resist the tides. He is aligned with the flow, a quiet participant in the pulse of the world. From him, I learn a third philosophy. Harmony arises not from domination, but from attunement to the larger forces that shape our lives. I pause in the middle of the field, letting these lessons settle into my chest like soft stones. The wind brushes my hair and carries the faint scent of soil and water. I hear the distant murmur of animals, the occasional bird calling overhead. Even Icarus, somewhere beneath the waves, does not disturb this calm. And I realize that perhaps this is the most profound truth of all. The world does not revolve around our suffering, our ambition, our fear. Yet it holds us tenderly, gently, endlessly. I let my gaze wander to the horizon, where the hills meet the sky. The line is soft, almost imperceptible, a reminder that boundaries are subtle, not rigid. Life flows along these gradients, unnoticed yet inexorably connected. It is easy to focus on the dramatic, the fall, the triumph, the disaster, and overlook the quiet continuity that sustains everything. Yet in this continuity, I feel a sense of peace deeper than any excitement or fear could provide. And now, as I step closer to the water, I notice the small details often ignored. The faint shimmer of sunlight on a blade of grass, the curve of a hill in shadow, the subtle texture of the sea reflecting the sky. These details, overlooked in the rush of life or the spectacle of myth, carry the essence of Bruegel's vision. Attention, he teaches, is itself an act of reverence. To notice, to dwell, to be present, these are the quiet triumphs of existence. I pause and reflect on the juxtaposition before me. Icarus falling in a corner, largely unnoticed, and the ordinary figures continuing their work, their song, their patience. There is a philosophical resonance here that fills the air like the soft hum of wind across the hills. The world does not collapse because a single ambition fails. Life is resilient, steady, indifferent yet generous. And I am reminded that in noticing this, in entering this quiet world, I too can find peace. I let my mind wander further, imagining the thoughts of the ploughman, the shepherd, the fisherman. The ploughman may be thinking of the soil's fertility, of the next harvest, of the rhythm of seasons. The shepherd may ponder the welfare of his flock, the shape of clouds, the warmth of sunlight on his skin. The fisherman may meditate on patience, on tides, on currents beyond his control. And yet, all three are connected, unknowingly, by the shared pulse of existence. Their lives, though ordinary, are profoundly intertwined with the fall of Icarus, with the myths we carry in our hearts. In this moment, I realize that the painting itself is a meditation on perception. It asks me to consider not only what I see, but how I see it. The fall of Icarus is tragic, yet almost invisible. The ordinary lives continue, vibrant and persistent. Perhaps the lesson is that significance is not always in spectacle, but in the quiet constancy of living. I move gently toward the ploughman, letting the wind carry the faint warmth of the sun across my skin. I imagine stepping alongside him, feeling the rhythm of his labor, inhaling the scent of freshly turned soil. There is a profound serenity in this attention, a quiet grounding that reaches the core of being. I am here, fully present, fully alive, without need for drama or acclaim. And in this presence, I feel a kind of liberation. I let my eyes drift over the hills again, noticing the subtle interplay of shadow and light, the way colors blend to form a seamless whole. The painting is no longer a static object, but a living environment, a world with its own pulse and wisdom. I sense the philosophy Bruegel embeds in every stroke: attention, patience, harmony, presence. These are the threads that weave the fabric of life, far more enduring than fame, heroism, or spectacle. And as I pause by the water's edge, feeling the gentle tug of the current, I let my mind rest in the stillness of this world. Icarus has fallen, the ordinary figures continue, and I am part of the rhythm that carries everything forward. The lesson is clear. Even in a vast, indifferent world, there is meaning in being, in noticing, in breathing. That I step back slightly and close my eyes, allowing the hum of the painting to wash over me. The wind, the soil, the sea, the sky, all converge into a single, gentle pulse. I am present. I am alive. And I am enough. Here, in this quiet, still world, I find the meditation I was seeking. Life moves on, yes, but I can move with it, softly, consciously, aware of both myth and reality. I am awake to the ordinary. I am awake to the fall. I am awake to the calm persistence of life. And as I breathe slowly, letting the rhythm settle into my chest, I feel the gentle invitation to rest. to let the ordinary carry me, to let attention become serenity, to allow the still world, quietly unaware, to hold me in its patient embrace. I move through the fields, across the soft hills, and now my gaze settles on the small, almost hidden figure in the corner of the painting, Icarus. He is falling. Not with fanfare, not with dramatic flourish, but with the quiet inevitability of a feather drifting from a high branch. His legs flail faintly, his arms stretch toward something unreachable, and his wings, once glorious with ambition and wax, are failing him. I step closer in my mind's eye, and I feel the weight of his descent. Not terror, not panic, but a gentle, inexorable pull toward the water, toward the earth, toward reality. It is a soft reminder that the world responds to the laws of nature, to gravity, to the rhythms of existence, and that no desire, no longing, no human flight can alter these truths. I breathe slowly, letting this moment expand around me. The air feels thick with reflection, almost vibrating with the quiet questions of human striving. How often do we aim for the sun? How often do we stretch ourselves beyond what we know is safe, simply because the light is beautiful, because the warmth calls, because ambition whispers in our ears? And yet, the fall is not shameful. It is not cruel. It is simply the consequence of reaching. It is the natural arc of aspiration and reality meeting. There is a strange beauty in this inevitability, a philosophical depth in the recognition that to fall is as human as to rise. I let my mind drift into Icarus' perspective. The sky once seemed infinite, welcoming, radiant. He rose with hope, with joy, with the reckless courage of youth. Each flap of his wings was an echo of desire, a brushstroke of imagination against the canvas of reality. And now, as the wax melts and the height fails, the descent is inevitable, yet it carries with it no bitterness, only the quiet, tender dignity of a moment fully lived. I notice the contrast between the world's indifference and the intensity of Icarus' fall. The ploughman continues his work. The shepherd hums his tune. The fisherman watches the tide. No one witnesses the drama, yet the sky itself seems to hold the moment, stretching it into eternity. There is a philosophy here. Life proceeds, regardless of individual triumphs or failures. The world is vast, patient, forgiving, indifferent in its constancy, yet infinitely capable of containing our stories. And I consider my own ambitions. The flights I have taken in thought, in effort, in desire. How often have I soared toward my personal suns, only to feel the gentle pull of gravity reclaim me? And yet, I am here. I am breathing. I am reflecting. I am noticing. I am alive in the aftermath of my own small falls. The painting teaches me another truth. Significance is not always public. The enormity of Icarus' myth contrasts with his invisibility to the figures around him. The ordinary world persists. Glory and tragedy exist, but often quietly, in the shadows of everyday life. And in that quietness, there is humility, a reminder that our greatest endeavors do not always require recognition, that our failures are part of a continuum, not an interruption. I step closer to the point where the water will meet Icarus. I feel the soft, inevitable splash, not as an end, but as a transformation. The sea receives him tenderly, absorbing the heat of ambition, the sharpness of youth, the brilliance of wings. There is no judgment here. There is only integration, a merging with a world that continues despite individual strivings. The symbolism is not lost on me. Icarus represents aspiration, the human need to reach beyond limitations, to touch something transcendent. Yet Bruegel reminds us that such striving is always entwined with mortality, with consequence, with the rhythm of life. Ambition is beautiful, but it is not exempt from gravity. Desire is radiant, but it does not suspend the natural order. And in this gentle collision, there is poetry, soft, quiet, meditative poetry that resonates deeper than drama or spectacle ever could. I turn my gaze back to the ordinary figures. They do not know they are witnesses. They do not need to. Their constancy is the anchor of the world. And I realize that the fall of Icarus, though momentous in myth, is rendered within a framework of continuity. Life does not halt for catastrophe. Life absorbs it, integrates it, moves forward. And within that movement, there is serenity, wisdom, and profound philosophical insight. I breathe again, slowly, letting the cadence of the ploughman's work, the shepherd's song, the fisherman's watch, and the ripple of Icarus fall merge in my mind. Each rhythm becomes a note in a quiet symphony, a meditation on being, on attention, on humility. The fall is not spectacle, it is reflection. The rise is not triumph, it is awareness. And the ordinary world, quietly unaware, holds them both. I let my consciousness expand, imagining the world not as static, but as flowing, a river of perception and experience. Icarus' fall is a reminder that desire carries risk, that beauty carries impermanence, that human striving is always bound to consequence. And yet, in this impermanence, there is grace. In this consequence, there is presence. The sea, the fields, the sky, the hills, all hold the moment without judgment. And I feel a gentle echo within myself. It is enough to try, to aspire, to fall, to be unnoticed, to exist. The world, in its vastness, envelops all of it. It is patient, kind, indifferent, and enduring. And I, small, aware, breathing, am part of it. I linger at the edge of this realization. I feel the weight of ambition, the sweetness of striving, the quiet acceptance of limits. I understand that to fall is not to fail entirely, that the act of reaching itself contains its own quiet dignity. And in that understanding, I feel a soft release, a letting go of tension, a surrender to the rhythms of life. The sky above whispers, gentle and unhurried. The fields breathe in steady pulses. The water shimmers faintly, reflecting the soft glow of light. Even the fall of Icarus is tempered, contained, absorbed. And I realize that the lesson of the painting is this: significance does not demand an audience. Presence itself, attention itself, awareness itself, is enough. I close my eyes and listen. The sky says, "Fly, fall, and return." It says, "Be vast in your longing, but gentle in your understanding." It says, "The sun does not punish. It simply illuminates." And with that whisper, I feel a shift, a small awakening within the calm. The philosophical becomes personal. The myth becomes breath. The painting becomes mirror. I see myself in Icarus. In his rise, I see my desires, my questions, my hope. In his fall, I see my limits, my mortality, my acceptance. And in Bruegel's calm world, the ploughman, the shepherd, the sea, I see the eternal presence that holds both. The world does not reject the dreamer or the worker. It embraces both as necessary halves of the same whole. I let that realization settle like soft rain within me. The myth, the philosophy, the painting, the breath, all dissolve into a single truth. To live is to rise and fall within an infinite stillness. The universe does not require perfection. It requires participation. And I, like Icarus, am part of that rhythm. The wings may melt, but the flight was real. The fall may come, but the moment of light remains. And as I breathe slowly, eyes half closed, I realize that every heartbeat is its own small flight, each one daring, brief, luminous, before it sinks again into the ocean of calm. And in that cycle, endlessly repeating, endlessly serene, there is meaning. There is beauty. There is peace. The sea has quieted. The waves no longer crash or shimmer, they breathe. They move with the slow rhythm of a sleeping world. The horizon blurs into mist, soft and infinite, as if the sky has folded itself into the water. I stand at the edge of this gentle expanse, the place where Icarus vanished, where his story dissolved into the quiet truth of the world. The water moves without urgency, as though it remembers but does not mourn. And in this stillness, I begin to understand what acceptance feels like. It is not resignation. It is not the dull quiet of defeat. It is a spaciousness, a deep, endless calm that arises when the struggle between what is and what should be finally softens. Acceptance is the moment when the waves stop fighting the tide. I breathe with the sea now. Inhale, the water gathers. Exhale, it releases. A rhythm as ancient as the first light that touched the world. The fisherman, still at his shore, stands steady and patient. His gaze lingers upon the horizon, not searching, not waiting, simply being. Perhaps he saw something, a ripple, a wing, a spark, or perhaps he didn't. Either way, he remains. His presence, untroubled, mirrors the wisdom of the sea. I take a few slow steps closer to the water, and the air cools around me. Salt, breeze, and distance mingle together, forming a kind of silence that hums rather than rests. And as I listen, I begin to hear something beneath it, a deeper sound, a pulse, almost like the breathing of the world itself. It reminds me that everything that rises returns. Every wave that climbs must bow again to the ocean. Every breath that fills must empty. Every light, no matter how bright, will eventually fold back into shadow, not as loss, but as continuation. In this thought, I find a soft peace. The story of Icarus was never about punishment. It was about return. He did not fall into darkness. He fell into the arms of the world that birthed him. The sea, I realize, is the final philosopher. It speaks in movement and silence, in reflection and surrender. It teaches without words, without doctrine. It accepts without question, without judgment. And perhaps that is what Bruegel saw, or what he wished us to see. The world is whole, even when we are not. The sea is complete, even when it receives our fragments. And life, vast and indifferent, is still tender in its way. I gaze into the water. Beneath the surface, the world bends and shimmers, colors softening, shapes dissolving. There is no Icarus here, no wings, no myth, only motion. Only return. I imagine the boy becoming part of this motion, his story scattering through the currents, his dream carried in whispers across the ocean's endless expanse. Perhaps his courage, his yearning, his lightness have become the very rhythm of the waves. Perhaps the sea remembers him not as tragedy, but as song. And so, I listen. The water hums a lullaby, low, endless, wordless. A sound that has always existed and always will. It tells me, everything that rises returns. Everything that falls is embraced. There is no separation between loss and belonging. The philosopher in me wants to analyze, to name, to understand. But the sea teaches me to let go of analysis. To release meaning as easily as a wave releases foam. To feel instead of think. To be instead of seek. I sit by the edge, letting the sand cool beneath my palms. The air tastes faintly of salt and memory. I close my eyes and let the world fade. There is only breath, slow, patient, infinite. And in this breath, I sense what the myth has always known. To live is to rise. To fall is to return. To return is to belong. The sea knows no tragedy. It knows only movement. And in that movement, there is forgiveness. I think of all the times I have fallen, quietly, privately, unseen. Moments when ambition turned to exhaustion, when lightness turned to weight. And I realize now that each fall brought me closer to this kind of stillness. Each descent was a form of homecoming. We are not meant to hover in the sky forever. We are meant to touch the light, then the ground, then the light again, endlessly, rhythmically, gently. This is what acceptance feels like. The world no longer resisting itself. The self no longer resisting the world. I open my eyes and look again at Bruegel's calm sea. The fisherman still stands. The ploughman still guides the soil. The shepherd still hums to his flock. And somewhere beneath it all, Icarus sleeps, not lost but joined, his motion continuing through the motion of everything else. The scene no longer feels sad. It feels eternal. The ordinary and the mythic coexist. The visible and the unseen move together in one quiet rhythm. I begin to sense that this, too, is what it means to rest. To be part of the great continuity, to release the need to rise or resist, to float upon the sea of being and let the world hold you. The waves roll gently now, each one a cradle. The sound of them becomes the sound of breathing, yours, mine, the world's. The sea whispers, and the sky listens. Icarus sleeps, and the world continues to dream. And in this endless lull, I find that my own thoughts begin to dissolve. Not vanish, but soften, like light dissolving into dusk. We are meant to touch the light, then the ground, then the light again, endlessly, rhythmically, gently. This is what acceptance feels like. The world no longer resisting itself. The self no longer resisting the world. I open my eyes and look again at Bruegel's calm sea. The fisherman still stands. The ploughman still guides the soil. The shepherd still hums to his flock. And somewhere beneath it all, Icarus sleeps, not lost but joined, his motion continuing through the motion of everything else. The scene no longer feels sad. It feels eternal. The ordinary and the mythic coexist. The visible and the unseen move together in one quiet rhythm. I begin to sense that this, too, is what it means to rest. To be part of the great continuity, to release the need to rise or resist. To float upon the sea of being and let the world hold you. The waves roll gently now, each one a cradle. The sound of them becomes the sound of breathing, yours, mine, the world's. The sea whispers, and the sky listens. Icarus sleeps, and the world continues to dream. And in this endless lull, I find that my own thoughts begin to dissolve. Not vanish, but soften, like light dissolving into dusk. The sea teaches me the art of surrender, not as giving up, but as giving in. To the rhythm of what is. To the beauty of enough. I let go of the myth, the questions, the philosophy. For now, there is only this. The water's soft pulse. The air's gentle hush. The stillness of a world that keeps me, even as I fall asleep. And just before I drift completely, the sea offers one last whisper, tender, quiet, infinite. All things rise, all things fall, and all things are held. The water folds into silence. The sky deepens into dusk. And the world, patient, timeless, breathes on. The light has lowered itself into gold. The last edge of the sun drifts behind the hills, and the sea becomes a mirror of fading warmth. In this hour between wakefulness and dream, the world seems to breathe more slowly, as though time itself were exhaling. I sit beside the quiet water. The ripples shimmer like fragments of thought that have forgotten their names. The air tastes of salt and stillness. Each sound, the faint rustle of reeds, the whisper of a distant gull, arrives softened, rounded, as if the world has placed cotton around the edges of existence. Somewhere beyond, in the wide horizon that Bruegel painted with such patience, the day folds into itself. And I, too, begin to fold inward. Thought becomes feeling. Feeling becomes rest. I think of Icarus once more, not as a boy who fell but as a spark that joined the sea. Perhaps he sleeps now beneath the waves, dreaming the dreams that rise into us as night falls. Perhaps every wave that touches the shore is one of his thoughts, reaching outward, carrying fragments of courage and light. Dreams, I realize, are the continuation of flight. They are the wings the mind wears when the body rests. And tonight, the painting becomes the threshold to that quiet sky within. The ploughman, the shepherd, the fisherman, all begin to blur in my mind, their movement slowing until they seem eternal. The fields fade into darkness, but the darkness is not empty. It glows faintly, like a deep breath. I close my eyes. The rhythm of the sea becomes the rhythm of sleep, a tide moving through the body, lifting, lowering, easing every thought into gentleness. In this half-dream, philosophy transforms into image. Camus' stone becomes a smooth pebble beneath my hand. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence becomes the circling foam of waves that never tire. And Icarus, he is both rise and fall, both spark and sea. The mind drifts. Questions no longer need answers. They unfold like sails, catching only the quiet wind of curiosity. Who am I, in this world of myth and soil and sky? A watcher, perhaps. Or maybe a single brushstroke in Bruegel's patient hand. Maybe all of us are, each thought, each breath, a color laid carefully upon the canvas of existence. The thought soothes me. It removes the urgency from life. It reminds me that meaning does not have to be seized, it can be lived. We do not need to cling to the sun. We only need to open to light when it comes, and close our eyes when it passes. The sea agrees. Its surface glimmers, then darkens, glimmers again. Every reflection is temporary, yet every reflection is true. As I drift deeper, words loosen. Language melts like wax. What remains is sensation, warmth, rhythm, vastness. This is the philosophy of rest. To let the wings dissolve without fear. To let the fall become floating. To understand that even as consciousness sinks, awareness expands, wide as water, soft as dusk. The stars begin to appear. Tiny witnesses, scattered like quiet thoughts across the dome of sky. Each one feels close enough to touch, yet each one keeps its distance, teaching that beauty needs space to be seen. I imagine one star watching Icarus' final flight. Not in pity, not in judgment, but in recognition. The star knows that all light returns to light. And so, beneath this gentle universe, I rest. The sound of the waves becomes the sound of blood in my veins. The pulse of the world aligns with the pulse of the body. The painting fades, and I become the space it once held. If I listen closely, I can hear the hush between heartbeats, the same hush that lives between day and night, between rise and fall. That hush is eternity. It is where every story pauses, waiting to be dreamed again. I drift toward it, unafraid. The sea darkens, the sky softens, and the mind begins to wander through landscapes that have no edges. A mountain of light. A sky made of water. A sea that remembers wings. I am not separate from any of it. I am the ripple, the reflection, the gentle descent into stillness. I am part of the same hush that holds Icarus and the shepherd and the distant star. And as the final trace of daylight slips away, the voice of the sea murmurs one last invitation. Rest now. The sky will dream through you. The sea has quieted to a whisper. The air holds its breath, as if afraid to disturb the fragile stillness of dusk. All the world seems to pause between one heartbeat and the next. And in that pause, I begin to sense the edges of another realm. Not separate from this one, but hidden beneath it, like a second reflection below the surface of the water. The last light of day trembles across the waves, turning each ripple into a golden thread that fades almost as soon as it appears. It is here, in this trembling, that I feel the story of Icarus most clearly, not as a tragedy, but as a transformation. For what is the fall, if not a return to the elements that gave us flight in the first place? The sea, the sky, the sun, they are not enemies. They are mirrors, endlessly reflecting the same longing, to know, to touch, to become. The fisherman in Bruegel's painting feels this without needing to speak it. He stands at the water's edge, his line cast into the deep, not for fish perhaps, but for something nameless. A sense that even the quietest act might connect him to the vastness beyond. And I, watching him through the veil of centuries, feel my own thoughts slowing, softening, becoming circular like the tide. I wonder, when we dream, are we not like this fisherman, standing on the threshold between worlds, our minds casting lines into the unknown? Each dream is a ripple from that line, spreading outward until it meets the horizon. Each dream is a small rebellion against gravity, a way for the spirit to rise again after every fall. Icarus, perhaps, was the first dreamer. His wings were not just wax and feather, but imagination, the boldness to believe that light could be touched. And when he fell, he did not fail. He joined the sea of every other dreamer who has ever dared to rise. The ocean that swallowed him was not punishment, but embrace. It is this, I think, that Bruegel understood. He painted the fall not as spectacle, but as whisper. a moment small enough to be missed by the ploughman, by the shepherd, by the fisherman. And in that smallness, the truth becomes vast. That the world continues, that beauty remains, that life is not undone by loss. The fields still breathe. The birds still fly. The sea still sings. And within that song, we find our rest. As I sit within the quiet of this imagined shore, I begin to hear another kind of music, the slow, unbroken rhythm that hums beneath all things. It is the same rhythm that moves through your pulse, through the waves, through the unseen motions of the stars. This, perhaps, is what philosophy seeks but never names. The unity beneath difference, the stillness beneath movement, the silence beneath sound. To think is to wander across the landscape of being. But to rest, to truly rest, is to realize that the landscape was never separate from you. The shepherd in Bruegel's scene watches the sky, unaware of Icarus below. Yet perhaps his gaze keeps the heavens open, his presence anchoring the world in quiet wonder. There is balance even in blindness, there is grace even in the unknowing. The stars begin to appear, faint and scattered. Tiny embers that seem to drift downward rather than up. They are not distant tonight, they seem to lean closer, as if to listen. Each one, a thought. Each one, a memory of light. Perhaps the stars, too, dream of falling. To feel, just once, what it is to be touched by the earth. And so the sky and the sea exchange their longing endlessly. The one to descend, the other to rise. It is in that meeting, in that shimmering line between water and air, that we live and love and eventually sleep. For sleep, too, is a kind of horizon. It is where the conscious mind sets like the sun, where thoughts dissolve into color, and color into breath. It is not an ending, but a passage, a slow descent into the same water that once caught Icarus. And perhaps, as you listen now, you are already drifting. Your breathing lengthens, your shoulders loosen, and the edges of the room begin to blur, as if painted softly in Bruegel's hand. This is the threshold. This is the place where wakefulness bends toward dream. Let it. For just as the sea held Icarus, so too does rest hold you, not as a weight, but as a cradle. And in that cradle, the stars hum their quiet truths. The air cools, and the night unfolds like a slow, forgiving wave. The night deepens, and with it, the edges of the world soften further. The horizon, once a clear line between water and sky, now melts into mist and memory. I feel as though I could step from the shore and glide across the waves, carried not by wings but by thought itself. The rhythm of the sea becomes a heartbeat, slow, steady, eternal. Each pulse draws me further into quiet reflection, further into the folds of dream. And here, within this liminal space, the philosophy of Icarus whispers softly. To rise is to risk, to fall is to return, and to return is to become whole again. I imagine him now, beneath the water's gentle surface. Not struggling, not screaming, only suspended in a tender moment between the light above and the depths below. The world holds him in its arms, the same world that carries us all, unseen yet endlessly present. I think of the ploughman, still bending over his field. His hands mark the rhythm of the earth, yet his mind may be wandering across hills we cannot see. In that quiet labor, he understands something profound without knowing it. That life continues, that work is sacred, that presence is enough. The shepherd, too, watches his flock. He hums a tune to the wind, simple and unhurried. It is a song of being, of patience, of alignment with the eternal pulse of the world. Perhaps he senses the fall of Icarus as a change in the air, faint, almost imperceptible. And yet he does not turn. He does not grasp for meaning. He only exists. And the fisherman, waiting by the water, reflects the same truth. He is patient. He is attentive. He knows the rhythm of tides, of life, of dreams. Perhaps in some way, he too is Icarus, daring silently, then surrendering. Perhaps each cast of his line is a question thrown into the universe, each ripple a thought echoing across the water. The wind carries all of this together, blending sky, sea, and mind into a single, gentle hum. And as I inhale, I feel it enter me, a kind of quiet wisdom, slow and expansive. Breath becomes bridge. Awareness becomes tide. Thoughts no longer demand answers. They fold into themselves, becoming soft as waves on sand. In this hush, I realize that dreams are not separate from life. They are the water beneath it, the sky above it, the light that bends between. Each dream mirrors a rise, each rise carries a fall, each fall becomes a return. And in that rhythm, there is neither error nor triumph, only presence. I drift further into this reflection, imagining a sky dotted with tiny stars that pulse like distant thoughts. Each one seems to lean closer, as if inviting me to listen. I wonder what they have seen, centuries of rise and fall, of ambition and surrender, of quiet life continuing amidst the mythic. The stars themselves seem to breathe. They inhale the light of the sun, exhale the memory of night. And I sense that in that breath is the same pulse that moves through me, that moves through Icarus, that moves through the waves. Sleep approaches now, like a slow tide rising. The boundaries of the room, of the body, of the mind, soften into the larger rhythm of existence. I let myself be carried by it, letting each inhalation lift me slightly, each exhalation settle me more deeply. There is no hurry. There is no goal. There is only movement. I begin to imagine the thoughts of Icarus as he fell, moment by moment. Perhaps he wondered about the sun, about wings, about the sky. Perhaps he felt joy and fear entwined, inseparable as light and shadow. And perhaps he discovered, just before the water received him, that the very act of reaching is the only triumph that matters. I feel that triumph myself. Not in the rise or in the fall, but in the awareness that all things, ambition, labor, myth, life, exist together. That the world continues in its steady pulse, embracing every rise, every fall, every silent observer. The waves at my feet ripple, carrying reflections of starlight. Each wave seems to echo a whisper. Rise. Fall. Return. Repeat. Breathe. I feel the words not as language, but as sensation. They move through my chest, my limbs, my mind, softening every corner, expanding every space. The wind carries them further, across fields, across hills, across centuries, until they reach the ears of the ploughman, the shepherd, the fisherman, and anyone listening now. In that moment, I sense the universality of the myth. Icarus' flight is not only his, but ours. Every act of daring, every quiet surrender, every dream, every descent belongs to the same rhythm. And in that belonging, there is peace. I feel myself drifting. The edges of my body, my thoughts, even my awareness begin to dissolve into the broader hush of the night. Time stretches and folds. Past, present, and future seem to exist together in a single, luminous moment. I think of philosophers who have sought meaning in this rhythm. Nietzsche with his eternal recurrence, Camus with his absurd hero, the Greeks with their hubris and humility. And I see how Bruegel's painting, quiet as it is, embodies the same lessons. The world does not need our triumphs or tragedies to continue. Yet our awareness of them, our noticing, our presence, these are enough. The stars multiply, or perhaps I have simply opened to more of them. Each one seems like a memory, a possibility, a tiny spark of existence. I imagine them drifting into my mind, each one softening my thoughts, each one dissolving urgency, each one teaching patience. Sleep approaches further. It is no longer a concept, no longer a goal. It is the movement of breath and tide, of wave and wind, of rise and fall. It is a gentle surrender to rhythm. It is the continuation of Icarus' flight, beneath the horizon, within the sea, within me. I feel the whisper of wings again. Not in panic, not in fall, but in recognition, that each attempt, each rise, each reach is a dialogue with the world. The world answers not in words, but in continuity, in presence, in soft movement. And now, as consciousness becomes a gentle current, I am ready to drift fully. I leave behind striving. I leave behind tension. I leave behind thought that grasps. I embrace instead the vastness beneath, the sky above, the tide that moves through everything. This is the threshold. This is the horizon beneath which dreams form. This is the moment between wakefulness and sleep, between myth and life, between rise and fall. And here, in this gentle place, I am carried, not by wings, not by ambition, not by effort, but by the steady, unbroken rhythm of existence itself. The night deepens further, and the horizon softens into a gentle, unbroken line where sky and water meet. I feel the air around me as though it were liquid, carrying the scent of salt, of distant earth, and of quiet thought. It holds me without pressure, like a gentle cradle rocking slowly on the tides. I imagine Icarus again, not as a boy falling but as a spark in the current of existence. The moment of descent is no longer tragic. It is tender, luminous, a small, perfect echo of the sky's infinite patience. The sea below reflects the stars, each ripple a prism of thought. The waves move in soft repetition, a rhythm older than any language, older than memory. Each wave is a lesson, teaching without words. That motion and stillness are the same. That rising and falling are indistinguishable from being. That awareness is enough. I let myself sink into that rhythm, feeling the tide move through me. Breath becomes water. Thought becomes tide. I dissolve into the quiet hum of the universe. And yet, in this dissolution, awareness remains. I am conscious, soft, and unhurried. I notice the small details, the way a wave folds on itself, the silver flash of a star reflected in the water, the hush between each heartbeat, each breath, each moment of thought. These are the spaces that hold all things. Philosophically, it is here that I feel the echo of Camus' absurd hero. Sisyphus pushed his stone endlessly, and yet, in that repetitive motion, he found freedom. Icarus rises, falls, returns, and is absorbed into the continuity of the world. The lesson is subtle. Life's meaning does not reside in achievement or recognition, but in presence, in participation, in noticing. I watch the fisherman, still at his post, casting lines into the quiet sea. He might not know the boy beneath the waves, yet his act resonates with the same rhythm: patience, openness, connection. Each cast is a meditation, each ripple a whisper of understanding. And perhaps, in some way, he too is dreaming, catching not fish, but the essence of movement, of rhythm, of life itself. The ploughman and shepherd, in their fields and hills, seem distant yet intimately tied to the same pulse. The land rises and falls beneath their hands, beneath their feet. The cycles of labor mirror the cycles of the sky: growth, decay, return. In their quiet diligence, the world finds balance. Even myth, even Icarus, is folded into this pattern, as natural as dawn, as necessary as dusk. The stars above continue to bloom, faint and deliberate, like thoughts formed in the stillness of night. They seem to pulse gently, echoing the rhythm of the waves, the rhythm of breath. I imagine each one carrying a fragment of aspiration, a fragment of courage, a fragment of rest. And as I follow their faint shimmer across the water, I feel my mind softening, letting go of the need to control, to reason, to name. Dream, I realize, is the philosophy of the body. It is the reflection of thought in motion, the translation of desire into sensation, the quiet dialogue between mind and world. I am part of this dialogue now, both participant and witness, rising and falling in rhythm with the universe. I think of the sun, distant now, a memory behind the hills. Its warmth lingers faintly, not as fire or danger, but as illumination. Illumination for understanding, for noticing, for being. The light that once tempted Icarus is the same light that touches the waves, the ploughman's back, the fisherman's line, and the slow pulse of breath that carries me forward into sleep. I begin to imagine layers of consciousness. The waking self, the dreaming self, the mythic self, the timeless self. They fold into each other like waves, indistinguishable yet separate. And in this folding, there is serenity, a recognition that every rise contains a fall, every fall contains a rise, and both are held within the same vastness. The night deepens further, becoming a soft velvet blanket over the mind. The air feels heavier with the richness of thought, yet lighter with the absence of tension. Each inhalation draws in calm. Each exhalation releases worry, effort, and expectation. I am part of the tide. I am part of the sky. I am part of the gentle, persistent hum of existence. In this state, the boundaries between self and world blur. The painting, the myth, the philosophical reflection, all dissolve into sensation. I feel Icarus' flight as my own. I feel the waves beneath him as my own breath. I feel the sky's patient watchfulness as the pulse of quiet understanding within me. The horizon remains a soft line, not dividing, but connecting. It reminds me that all thresholds, between day and night, wakefulness and sleep, myth and memory, are merely invitations. Invitations to drift, to release, to merge with the continuity that underlies all things. I imagine the sound of the sea expanding into dream. Waves rolling, overlapping, folding upon themselves. A low, unbroken hymn of motion and stillness, rise and fall, being. I am carried by it, lifted and grounded at the same time. The rhythm is hypnotic, gentle, inevitable. Here, reflection becomes sensation. Philosophy becomes dream. The mind becomes tide, the body becomes water, the self becomes horizon. And as I sink further into this state, I sense the presence of the myth dissolving into memory, the memory dissolving into rhythm, the rhythm dissolving into quiet. I am neither Icarus nor ploughman, neither shepherd nor fisherman. I am only the hush between waves, the shimmer of stars, the pulse of breath, the endless gentle fold of night. Time itself seems suspended. Moments stretch, overlap, and fold into each other without resistance. The rise and fall of the myth, the tide, the dream, the night, all are one. And in this unity, I am free. Not in the sense of action or ambition, but in the sense of complete and total acceptance. That to rise is natural. That to fall is inevitable. That to rest is sublime. The sea hums beneath me, the stars pulse above, the horizon expands infinitely. I am cradled by it all, held by the same rhythm that has carried dreams for centuries. And in this cradle, I finally release. Release the need to control, release the weight of waking thought, release the tension of striving. And as the night deepens into total calm, I am ready to drift further into dreams beneath the horizon. The night stretches endlessly, a soft expanse that hums beneath the awareness of everything. Each wave, each star, each distant hill becomes a brushstroke of quiet, a note in a lullaby written by time itself. I imagine Icarus again, drifting beneath the surface of the water. Not as a boy who fell, but as a spark, a fragment of the infinite rhythm that moves through all things. The moment of descent, once tense and fleeting, now expands. It stretches like the tide, like breath, like consciousness itself, folding into the vastness that holds all motion. I feel the water envelop him, not with cold or fear, but with gentle, encompassing presence. The sea does not judge. It does not demand. It only holds. And in that holding, the myth becomes philosophy, and the philosophy becomes dream. I sense the ploughman, bent over the soil, merging with his task. His hands mark the rhythm of growth and decay, of planting and harvesting, of effort and rest. The rhythm is slow, deliberate, sacred. It mirrors the rise and fall of wings, the oscillation of tides, the passage of thought into dream. Each movement is a meditation, each repetition a prayer. The shepherd, likewise, hums his tune, unaware of Icarus beneath the waves. And yet his song contributes to the same unseen harmony, a quiet symphony connecting land, water, sky, and mind. Perhaps every human action, no matter how small, is like this, a thread in a vast, invisible tapestry. Each thread is impermanent, yet together they create the enduring pattern of existence. The stars above shimmer faintly, tiny sparks that pulse with their own rhythm. I imagine each one holding a fragment of every thought, every desire, every flight we have ever dared. They reflect the world below not as it is, but as it was, as it is now, and as it could be. And in their distant presence I feel a deep, tender comfort, the reassurance that every rise and fall is observed, remembered, and held. Sleep draws closer, moving like the tide beneath me. Its rhythm is steady, patient, unhurried. I feel my body aligning with it, every muscle, every breath, every thought slowing into the same gentle pulse. Dream is not separate from life. It is the continuation of awareness through a different lens, a softer perception, a quieter motion. And in this state, I realize that philosophy itself is a form of dreaming. A search for understanding, a willingness to rise beyond the immediate, a recognition of patterns that fold endlessly into themselves. I feel the weight of ambition dissolve. The rise and fall of Icarus, the toil of the ploughman, the song of the shepherd, the patient cast of the fisherman, all blend into one continuous movement. There is no hierarchy of importance here. There is only rhythm, presence, and the gentle acknowledgement of being. The horizon begins to glow faintly with the memory of sunlight, though the sun itself has long since slipped away. Its warmth lingers as a soft pulse across the water, a reminder that even light that has passed continues to touch the world. Icarus, beneath the waves, feels that pulse. And so do I, carried along by the tide of consciousness, merging with the rhythm of the universe. I begin to imagine layers of dreams stacked upon each other. Thoughts dissolving into images, images dissolving into feeling, feeling dissolving into rhythm. The line between self and world blurs. I am simultaneously the observer and the observed, the dreamer and the dreamed. The waves move in a slow, hypnotic cadence. I feel them roll beneath me, around me, within me. Each crest carries a reflection of light, each trough a shadow of thought. The oscillation becomes a mantra: rise, fall, return, repeat. Breath synchronizes with the tide. Inhale, lift. Exhale, settle. The mind softens. The body softens. The world softens. I imagine the stars leaning closer, watching, humming faintly. Each one contains a story, of ambition, of desire, of flight, of surrender. I let their light seep into me, softening tension, dissolving thought, opening the space for deep, meditative rest. And here, the philosophy becomes a lullaby. To rise is human, to fall is human, to rest is sacred. Nothing is lost. Everything is held. I begin to sense the philosophy embedded in this quiet. That meaning does not demand drama, that presence outweighs action, that stillness contains all truth. The universe does not need recognition to be beautiful. It simply exists, and in existing, it holds all rising and falling within itself. The stars above shimmer faintly, as if breathing in tandem with the sea. I imagine them as conscious observers of the unfolding rhythm, witnesses to ambition, surrender, life, and dream. They are both distant and intimate, a paradox carried softly into the mind's edge. Sleep approaches more fully now, not as something to seek, but as something that rises to meet me. The boundary between self and world softens. Thought no longer needs articulation. Sensation carries understanding. I am lifted by it, settled by it, carried by it, a single note in the symphony of the universe. I imagine the layers of consciousness folding like soft fabric. Waking self, dreaming self, observing self, mythic self, all merging into a single rhythm. In that rhythm, I feel the lesson of Icarus. To reach, to fall, to return. Each act complete, each moment whole, each experience embraced. The air cools around me, filled with the faint scent of salt and distant earth. I feel each inhalation draw the world inward. Each exhalation release worry, tension, and effort. The mind becomes tide, the body becomes water, the self becomes horizon. I imagine the stars leaning closer, their light soft and tender. Each spark contains a fragment of courage, a fragment of aspiration, a fragment of rest. They move through me, dissolving urgency, deepening calm, expanding awareness. And in this state, I realize that philosophy is not separate from dream. It is the awareness of pattern, of rhythm, of continuity. It is the understanding that every rise, every fall, every silent pause belongs to the same movement. And in that movement, there is freedom. The waves continue their slow, hypnotic cadence, a lullaby older than memory. I feel it pulse beneath me, around me, within me. Each crest is reflection, each trough is shadow, each movement is wisdom. I am neither Icarus, nor ploughman, nor shepherd, nor fisherman. I am the tide. I am the sky. I am the hush between waves. I am the pulse beneath the horizon. Time stretches, folds, dissolves. The rise and fall of myth, of life, of consciousness, all merge into a single, endless rhythm. I am carried within it, held, lifted, cradled by motion and stillness simultaneously. The stars multiply, fading in and out, appearing as memories, as possibilities, as soft light guiding me toward deeper calm. I imagine them folding into the water, the horizon, the mind, until all is a single luminous, breathing presence. Dream drifts closer now, not a destination but a tide. I feel it wash over me, lifting the edges of my awareness, smoothing the corners of my mind. Every thought softens. Every worry dissolves. The myth of Icarus becomes a pulse, the painting becomes a wave, and I become both observer and current. The horizon shimmers faintly with distant light, though the sun has long departed. Its glow reminds me that even passing moments leave traces. That every act of reaching, every rise, every fall, every quiet observation is preserved within the rhythm of the universe. I breathe in that rhythm, letting it carry me further into dream. Deeper than thought, wider than memory, calmer than expectation. And as I drift, I sense that all boundaries, between myth and life, self and world, waking and sleeping, are invitations. Invitations to release, to merge, to surrender. I am ready to accept them. The night deepens, folding itself into layers of calm. The horizon stretches endlessly, a soft line where sky and sea meet, dissolving into mist and memory. I drift along it, a gentle presence carried on the pulse of the universe. Each wave, each star, each ripple of wind moves in harmony with the quiet rhythm of breath. Inhale, lift. Exhale, settle. The myth of Icarus is no longer a story of fall or failure. It is a meditation, a reflection of the cycles of all being. Each rise, each fall, each quiet return is a note in the symphony of life. The waves beneath me echo it, the stars above shimmer with it, the horizon hums with it. I sense the ploughman still in his field, his movements soft and deliberate. The earth folds beneath his hands, returning the effort of labor with quiet richness. The shepherd hums a distant song, its melody gentle, continuous, eternal. The fisherman watches the water, casting lines not for reward, but in harmony with the slow pulse of existence. All these lives, all these actions, merge into one rhythm, a rhythm that carries me, that holds me, that softens the mind and body into one gentle motion. The air is cool and fragrant, touched by salt and distant earth. Breath flows easily. The rhythm of inhalation and exhalation aligns with the pulse of waves, with the heartbeat of night, with the cadence of thought folding into dream. I imagine Icarus drifting beneath the surface, embraced by the sea, transformed from ambition into rhythm. The fall is not an end, but continuation. The wings, once fragile, are now currents of thought, of feeling, of awareness. He moves through the water like a note moving through silence, unhurried, gentle, complete. I feel myself merging with that rhythm. Time stretches, space folds, thought dissolves into sensation. I am carried along by tides older than memory, wider than life, deeper than consciousness. Philosophical reflections soften into dream. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, Camus' absurd hero, the quiet awareness of being. All become sensations rather than ideas, pulses rather than concepts. I rise and fall with them, move with them, rest with them. The boundary between thought and feeling disappears, replaced by the soft, steady cadence of existence. The stars above pulse gently, each a fragment of light, memory, and hope. I imagine each one carrying the echoes of every dream ever dreamt, every act of courage, every quiet surrender. They drift closer, their light seeping into me, softening tension, dissolving effort, deepening rest. Sleep is no longer a goal. It is a tide that carries me, that washes over the mind, that folds consciousness into itself. I drift into it willingly, aware yet ungrasping, soft yet attentive, awake yet dreaming. The horizon shimmers faintly with the memory of sunlight, a delicate glow touching water and sky alike. Even the sun, having set long ago, leaves a trace of warmth and illumination. It is the light that guided Icarus, that touches the ploughman, the shepherd, the fisherman, and now touches me. A reminder that even passing moments hold continuity, that presence is eternal, and that all rising, all falling, is contained in the gentle flow of being. I feel my awareness expand. The layers of consciousness, waking, dreaming, observing, mythic, fold seamlessly into each other. I am no longer separate from the world. I am tide, sky, wave, breath. The whisper of the sea, the shimmer of stars, the pulse of night, all become indistinguishable from myself. Dream deepens further. The waves overlap and fold, the horizon dissolves, the stars flicker like fragments of memory. I am lifted by the pulse of existence, held by the rhythm of life itself. There is no striving, no tension, no desire. There is only the continuous flow, rise, fall, return, repeat. I imagine the mythic Icarus joining the tide of human experience. Every flight, every fall, every quiet surrender. The lesson is clear, not in words, but in sensation. To reach is human. To fall is natural. To return is sacred. And to rest is sublime. I am cradled by this rhythm. The waves carry light and shadow, thought and dream, presence and imagination. The tide holds me gently, as if the universe itself is aware of my being. I breathe in the pulse, I breathe out surrender, I drift deeper into stillness. The stars bloom faintly, expanding across the sky like reflections in water. Each flicker is a story, a memory, a whisper of courage and hope. I feel them fold into my awareness, carrying me into a deep, infinite calm. Thoughts loosen, concerns dissolve, the edges of self soften into horizon. The air around me hums with the gentle cadence of life. Each inhalation is a rise, each exhalation a fall. I rise, I fall, I return, endlessly, effortlessly, tenderly. The night holds me, the waves carry me, the stars watch gently. Sleep is no longer a boundary, it is a continuum. Consciousness drifts, melts, expands, contracts. And I am part of the tide, part of the rhythm, part of the hush beneath the horizon. Every heartbeat echoes the rhythm of myth. Every rise, every fall, every moment of quiet surrender is contained in the pulse of existence. The sea, the sky, the stars, the waves, the horizon, they all carry this truth, and now I carry it with them. The mind softens completely. I am aware of nothing but the gentle movement of breath, the pulse of waves, the shimmer of stars. The self dissolves into rhythm. The myth dissolves into presence. The night dissolves into dream. And as the final trace of wakefulness fades, a gentle whisper arrives. All things rise. All things fall. And all things are held. I am held. The tide carries me, the horizon cradles me, the stars watch over me. I am neither Icarus nor ploughman, neither shepherd nor fisherman. I am all, I am none, I am tide, I am sky, I am hush. The waves hum their softest lullaby. The stars shimmer in gentle rhythm. The horizon folds beneath the infinite sky. I drift deeper, further, slower, carried by the pulse of everything. And now, in this space of infinite calm, I offer a small invitation. If this journey beneath the horizon has brought you peace, if these whispers of the sky have carried you gently into stillness, you may return again. A gentle tap on like lets this quiet ripple further. A soft click on subscribe ensures the rhythm of these whispers continues, flowing into your next moment of calm, your next descent into dream, your next brush with the sky. No urgency. No expectation. Only soft acknowledgement, like the tide brushing sand, like the stars folding light into night. Breathe easy. Release. Drift. Let the waves carry you. Let the horizon hold you. Let the stars watch over you. And in that quiet embrace, sleep. The light has lowered itself into gold. The last edge of the sun drifts behind the hills, and the sea becomes a mirror of fading warmth. In this hour between wakefulness and dream, the world seems to breathe more slowly, as though time itself were exhaling. I sit beside the quiet water. The ripples shimmer like fragments of thought that have forgotten their names. The air tastes of salt and stillness. Each sound, the faint rustle of reeds, the whisper of a distant gull, arrives softened, rounded, as if the world has placed cotton around the edges of existence. Somewhere beyond, in the wide horizon that Bruegel painted with such patience, the day folds into itself. And I, too, begin to fold inward. Thought becomes feeling. Feeling becomes rest. I think of Icarus once more, not as a boy who fell but as a spark that joined the sea. Perhaps he sleeps now beneath the waves, dreaming the dreams that rise into us as night falls. Perhaps every wave that touches the shore is one of his thoughts, reaching outward, carrying fragments of courage and light. Dreams, I realize, are the continuation of flight. They are the wings the mind wears when the body rests. And tonight, the painting becomes the threshold to that quiet sky within. The ploughman, the shepherd, the fisherman, all begin to blur in my mind, their movements slowing until they seem eternal. The fields fade into darkness, but the darkness is not empty. It glows faintly, like a deep breath. I close my eyes. The rhythm of the sea becomes the rhythm of sleep, a tide moving through the body, lifting, lowering, easing every thought into gentleness. In this half-dream, philosophy transforms into image. Camus' stone becomes a smooth pebble beneath my hand. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence becomes the circling foam of waves that never tire. And Icarus, he is both rise and fall, both spark and sea. The mind drifts. Questions no longer need answers. They unfold like sails, catching only the quiet wind of curiosity. Who am I, in this world of myth and soil and sky? A watcher, perhaps. Or maybe a single brushstroke in Bruegel's patient hand. Maybe all of us are, each thought, each breath, a color laid carefully upon the canvas of existence. The thought soothes me. It removes the urgency from life. It reminds me that meaning does not have to be seized, it can be lived. We do not need to cling to the sun. We only need to open to light when it comes, and close our eyes when it passes. The sea agrees. Its surface glimmers, then darkens, glimmers again. Every reflection is temporary, yet every reflection is true. As I drift deeper, words loosen. Language melts like wax. What remains is sensation, warmth, rhythm, vastness. This is the philosophy of rest. To let the wings dissolve without fear. To let the fall become floating. To understand that even as consciousness sinks, awareness expands, wide as water, soft as dusk. The stars begin to appear. Tiny witnesses, scattered like quiet thoughts across the dome of sky. Each one feels close enough to touch, yet each one keeps its distance, teaching that beauty needs space to be seen. I imagine one star watching Icarus' final flight. Not in pity, not in judgment, but in recognition. The star knows that all light returns to light. And so, beneath this gentle universe, I rest. The sound of the waves becomes the sound of blood in my veins. The pulse of the world aligns with the pulse of the body. The painting fades, and I become the space it once held. If I listen closely, I can hear the hush between heartbeats, the same hush that lives between day and night, between rise and fall. That hush is eternity. It is where every story pauses, waiting to be dreamed again. I drift toward it, unafraid. The sea darkens, the sky softens, and the mind begins to wander through landscapes that have no edges. A mountain of light. A sky made of water. A sea that remembers wings. I am not separate from any of it. I am the ripple, the reflection, the gentle descent into stillness. I am part of the same hush that holds Icarus and the shepherd and the distant star. And as the final trace of daylight slips away, the voice of the sea murmurs one last invitation. Rest now. The sky will dream through you. The sea has quieted to a whisper. The air holds its breath, as if afraid to disturb the fragile stillness of dusk. All the world seems to pause between one heartbeat and the next. And in that pause, I begin to sense the edges of another realm. Not separate from this one, but hidden beneath it, like a second reflection below the surface of the water. The last light of day trembles across the waves, turning each ripple into a golden thread that fades almost as soon as it appears. It is here, in this trembling, that I feel the story of Icarus most clearly, not as a tragedy, but as a transformation. For what is the fall, if not a return to the elements that gave us flight in the first place? The sea, the sky, the sun, they are not enemies. They are mirrors, endlessly reflecting the same longing, to know, to touch, to become. The fisherman in Bruegel's painting feels this without needing to speak it. He stands at the water's edge, his line cast into the deep, not for fish perhaps, but for something nameless. A sense that even the quietest act might connect him to the vastness beyond. And I, watching him through the veil of centuries, feel my own thoughts slowing, softening, becoming circular like the tide. I wonder, when we dream, are we not like this fisherman, standing on the threshold between worlds, our minds casting lines into the unknown? Each dream is a ripple from that line, spreading outward until it meets the horizon. Each dream is a small rebellion against gravity, a way for the spirit to rise again after every fall. Icarus, perhaps, was the first dreamer. His wings were not just wax and feather, but imagination, the boldness to believe that light could be touched. And when he fell, he did not fail. He joined the sea of every other dreamer who has ever dared to rise. The ocean that swallowed him was not punishment, but embrace. It is this, I think, that Bruegel understood. He painted the fall not as spectacle, but as whisper, a moment small enough to be missed by the ploughman, by the shepherd, by the fisherman. And in that smallness, the truth becomes vast. That the world continues, that beauty remains, that life is not undone by loss. The fields still breathe. The birds still fly. The sea still sings. And within that song, we find our rest. As I sit within the quiet of this imagined shore, I begin to hear another kind of music, the slow, unbroken rhythm that hums beneath all things. It is the same rhythm that moves through your pulse, through the waves, through the unseen motions of the stars. This, perhaps, is what philosophy seeks but never names. The unity beneath difference, the stillness beneath movement, the silence beneath sound. To think is to wander across the landscape of being. But to rest, to truly rest, is to realize that the landscape was never separate from you. The shepherd in Bruegel's scene watches the sky, unaware of Icarus below. Yet perhaps his gaze keeps the heavens open, his presence anchoring the world in quiet wonder. There is balance even in blindness, there is grace even in the unknowing. The stars begin to appear, faint and scattered. Tiny embers that seem to drift downward rather than up. They are not distant tonight, they seem to lean closer, as if to listen. Each one, a thought. Each one, a memory of light. Perhaps the stars, too, dream of falling. To feel, just once, what it is to be touched by the earth. And so the sky and the sea exchange their longing endlessly. The one to descend, the other to rise. It is in that meeting, in that shimmering line between water and air, that we live and love and eventually sleep. For sleep, too, is a kind of horizon. It is where the conscious mind sets like the sun, where thoughts dissolve into color, and color into breath. It is not an ending, but a passage. A slow descent into the same water that once caught Icarus. And perhaps, as you listen now, you are already drifting. Your breathing lengthens, your shoulders loosen, and the edges of the room begin to blur, as if painted softly in Bruegel's hand. This is the threshold. This is the place where wakefulness bends toward dream. Let it. For just as the sea held Icarus, so too does rest hold you, not as a weight, but as a cradle. And in that cradle, the stars hum their quiet truths. The air cools, and the night unfolds like a slow, forgiving wave. I am ready to drift fully, the edge of consciousness brushing sleep. If this quiet has found you, if these whispers of the sky have carried you gently into stillness, you may return again. A gentle tap on like lets this calm ripple further. A soft click on subscribe ensures the rhythm of these whispers continues, flowing into your next moment of rest, your next descent into dream, your next brush with the sky.